Welcome to the next episode of the Iowa Girls Wrestling Podcast. Today I have Allie St. John, two-time world silver medalist and right now director of donor relations at Iowa State University. Welcome.
Thank you for having me.
And how are you doing today?
All is good. Today's my birthday. I'm 33 years old.
Oh my
So,
gosh, well, happy birthday. I didn't even know that.
yep.
We'll have a huge
No.
celebration. I'm heading to Ames. We're gonna go out. All right.
Yep.
Um, I've been a big fan for years, watched you wrestle. That's actually you and a few of the others. I'm trying to think back some of the names, but were some of the first ones I watched wrestle and
Really.
stuff as female wrestlers and stuff. And it was such a cool thing to watch. But then we met when you were an assistant at Grandview. I believe one of the more interesting nights I remember, Night of Conflict in Sioux City,
Yep.
and it was a great event for the girls. And Aaron Gerlich was in attendance, and I think that drove things. But I remember saying something to you and your now husband that you got to stick around and watch these boys now too. That's the boring part, and he even agreed with that. So how things have changed, right?
Yep.
I thought maybe we'd start with your present day job, and we'll work our way back. How's that
Yep.
sound?
Sounds good.
Most important job you have right now is mom,
Yep.
right?
For
And
sure.
so how's that changed your life?
Oh gosh, well, I feel like people try to warn you and everything. Like it's the most loving, like the best feeling you'll ever have. And I can now attest to that like the love that you have for your kid is like beyond anything you'll ever experience. So Stevie is her name, and she's born back in November. So she's a little over 7 months now, and she is pulling up on everything and she's now moving and grooving. So we have our hands full, but it's honestly the best. So getting to see her develop and do all kinds of new different things and just seeing her grow up, I miss like the old stuff, but then I'm like, this is the best time. And then I'm like, I miss when she was tiny. So just a lot changes in those 7 months, and it's been great. Definitely a lot at the beginning. Like I want to say the first month I turned to my husband Derek and I was like, what did we do? We ruined our lives. Like when you're not sleeping, you're just so overwhelmed, and
Yep.
being first time parents, we didn't know what to expect. Everyone tries to like warn you of everything, but there's nothing that could ever prepare you for that kind of thing. So I think that that's is definitely a big change, but it's awesome.
Are you getting some sleep now?
Yeah, we sleep trained her probably at like month 3 or 4. So she's a 7:30 to 6:30 girl. So we get lots of sleep, thank goodness now.
Wow, that's amazing. I was telling you earlier before we started that I have a grandson that's eight
Yep.
months old, so just a month old ahead of you, and he is not sleep trained.
Oh.
Yes, my daughter is having a rough time, but yeah, we get to go babysit. So yeah, you said it's really neat when they're just staying in one spot. And you don't have to worry about where they're going. But then, man, it's fun to watch them grow up and be able to pull up on furniture, and those first steps are coming very soon, and that's when the real problems start.
Yeah, exactly.
So, Director of Donor Relations at Iowa State, what does that all entail?
I technically am under the RTC, so the Cyclone Regional Training Center for the guys. And that comes with a lot of things. We do a lot of events. So I think this summer we have 6 golf events. So doing everything for that. And we do 2 other events, the RTC 100. That's in October. It kind of kicks off right before season. And that's like a 600 person big banquet, big auction, meal, everything. And then we do like one more big social out in Madrid at the Flat Tire Lounge. So doing all of those events is a big part of it. Newsletters, all that kind of stuff too. Really, that entails we do just a lot of things. Dresser, I honestly just tell everyone that I just do whatever Dresser tells me to do. That's kind of my role. So
Yep.
anything in between, he'll ask me to do, and whether it's you kind of learn to do with it. But he doesn't like no for an answer. So just figuring out how to make his goals. He's got a lot of ideas. So figuring out how to make those happen is pretty much my day-to-day job. And then I do work on the collective side too. So making those NIL contracts and dealing with a lot of just relationships too. I would say that that comes with just any director of donor relations kind of role. So, yeah,
Yeah, that's a lot. That's a lot
it
to
is.
do.
It's a
You know,
lot. Yeah.
and I listen to a lot of different podcasts and different people talk about NIL and how that's changing the landscape of all sports, but man, wrestling, I bet there's a lot. I've heard there's a lot of nervous people around wrestling because it changes a lot, because we're
It
not
is.
necessarily a revenue sport, so it relies a lot on you and the donors, you getting donors to do
Yep.
that stuff.
100%.
What do you think NIL? I guess your husband is right there, trying to recruit people. How has that changed the recruiting process?
I think you're always trying to recruit and retain your athletes. I think the retaining part changes a lot of it. So you're not only recruiting them to come, but then they could get called any day and just be offered way more than they make at your school. So you're constantly trying to retain your athletes. But I think the biggest thing is just keeping that good foundation. I think that they have a great team culture here, and I think that that alone, like the guys are like a family here. So I think that that keeps everyone together and hopefully brings recruits in and stuff like that. So it's definitely different than any coach has probably ever signed up for. They probably didn't think they'd be fundraisers alongside their regular job, but it definitely comes with it. But just trying to still do the day-to-day things like build their team and definitely develop their wrestlers as they always have been, but it's definitely a lot for them
Yeah, with Dresser and your husband Metcalf coming in, it has changed Iowa State wrestling,
for
right? I
sure.
mean, I told you when I first moved back to Iowa, I did go to I had season tickets. Then I got to be full-time coach, and just it's really almost impossible to make it all the time. But they closed half of Hilton off, because
Mhm.
the attendance was so poor. What's the changes been like at Iowa State around the wrestling program? Just anything that you can think of that's awesome things that are happening.
Yeah, I think I want to say Dresser had said it before, but I think they got when they he took the job, I think they were 57th place that year at NCAA's they had gotten that, and then obviously last year they got fourth, so I think that that's huge. Um, and then this past year, I know they had a lot of injuries, so that
Yeah.
definitely don't hold them to that. So, and then now it just got released that another Northern Colorado guy. So they have seven returning All-Americans on their team for next year. So I think it is going to be a really exciting upcoming year. But I remember Dresser also saying that he said we got to take down the what was it like curtains up top that were
Yeah,
blocking
yeah,
half of it. He's like, I want those down. So I mean, record attendance is at an all-time high for wrestling. So I think it's just a good time to be a cyclone wrestling fan. And I think the cyclone wrestling fans have always been there, but it's hard to cheer, be behind a team that's not doing the best, you know? So I think that with them doing better and getting a lot of good recruits and stuff like that, that obviously helps that attendance. And you've been to Hilton. I don't know if you've
yeah.
been recently when with Dresser and Co. back in business, but there's those dual meets are pretty electric, so I think it's really fun to be a part of the fan base here.
Yeah, Hilton's just a fun place to go watch any sports. Iowa
Yep.
State, I go to a lot of Iowa State football games too, and just the fan base around Iowa State is fantastic. And it's a fun environment. Iowa State does a good job of creating a great environment. Um, One of the things it's been interesting to see, and I heard that Iowa State was starting a girls' club, and I know that you don't have a lot to do with that, but um, do you think that might be a precursor to Iowa State having a team?
I
Maybe, we don't
I would
know.
love that. Obviously that would be like the ultimate dream of mine, but I think with the whole revenue sharing and NCAA changing a lot, I think that that has a big part to do with it. I think before NIL, it was really close. A lot of D1 programs were really close to probably adding that. But being obviously a sport with that's not revenue generating, it's really hard to get a athletic department on board with that. You know what I mean? So I can't say that I don't know honestly when it's going to happen.
Yeah.
You'd have to probably ask the boss, Jamie Pollard, but
Yeah.
that would be awesome. I'm all about it.
Yeah, I'm really excited. I'm hoping that more D1s hop on, and I'm sure you are too, because it's a different thing. I Grandview when you were there, NAIA school, there's scholarship money there, but it's still very expensive to go to school there. D3 and NAI or D3 and NAIA schools really have built women's wrestling,
Yeah.
and so but it's a hard hard for them not to, like, D3 can't offer scholarships, and so it's not an even playing field. Iowa, I'm not a huge I'm a Cyclone fan, so I don't want to say anything real bad about the Hawkeyes, but it's not really a fair playing field in girls college wrestling right now,
100%.
just because they have it's basically the world teams hanging out there, you know.
Yep. Those resources at a D1 school, they're above and beyond anything that
Yeah.
NCAA Division two or any of those other NAI. It is what it is. So it's tough to compete with that for sure. Yeah,
Yeah, and
King, for
then
example, where I went, we were a Division two, but I mean, our looking at our practice room and what we had to work with, it's insane after being here and seeing what the guys here have to offer. So it's pretty crazy.
oh yeah, I was at Dana College, which is closed now, but when I started, we had a one mat practice room,
Yeah.
and we actually drove the vans to meets. Coach drove one, but then like an upperclassman drove two because that was our budget,
Scary.
some sandwiches with some cheese and maybe some
Yep.
bologna
Pretty
was your
much.
that was your thing. Um, Oklahoma State, though, that's a different type of club that's got started. Obviously, they've been recruited in some heavy. That's almost got to be more through the RTC, doesn't it? I mean,
I
maybe I don't know.
Yeah, I'm not sure about that. I know that obviously like Molly Allen, for example, who's a big time recruit, she went there. So I would think that she wouldn't go somewhere where it's just a club. I'm not sure. Obviously they have great coaches, one of them,
Yeah,
two of them being former wrestlers there. So I think that that's also huge. So I think that there has to be some kind of financial backing, but like where they can offer scholarships or something like that. So I don't know if they're able to compete with like against an Iowa or it's just like an open thing. Or maybe something where in the couple years like Lehigh started their club and then they went D1 this year. So I'm not sure how that works, but I'm intrigued to find out. I
yeah.
hope
The
they do
whole
a program.
the whole Ivy League thing was set up a little bit differently. Just with they were all wrestling folk or freestyle, where college club prior to that was folk style and all student run. Instead of like Emma Randall being a coach at Columbia, that's a hired coach doing club stuff. It's not your normal thing. So we'll both have to watch. And so if Iowa State ever got a team, would you be interested in taking that coaching job?
Oh yeah, that would be awesome. That would be a goal. Yeah.
That would be great.
Hopefully they'd hire me. I don't know about the requirements.
But you know some people in the department there, so maybe you have a little bit of an in.
Also put
Um,
in a good word.
I thought maybe we would go back to the beginning because things have changed a lot in women's wrestling and girls wrestling since you started. So how did you get started wrestling?
My older brother wrestled, and then he was about 3 years older than me. And then my dad also wrestled in college at SIUE, and then he was my high school and club coach. So I kind of just went to my brother's practices when I was little. And I would just be on the side with my mom watching. And then I wanted to play, everyone plays Sharks and Minnows. So I wanted to play the games at the end. But my dad would be like, you can't just play the games. If you're going to play the games, you have to do the practice. And I'm like, so I finally was done being bored on the side. So I just jumped in. Obviously, at home, I was like my brother's practice dummy, kind of how every sister is a little bit. You just get thumped on. So that's kind of just how I started. And for the first couple years, my parents didn't let me do any competitions or anything because they didn't kind of want me to get scared. Obviously, at that point, it's all boys that you're competing against. I think that was a little a little intimidating. But once I started competing, I played a lot of sports growing up too. So I think it was just one of my sports that I played, and I loved it. So I liked competing. So I think that that was what kept bringing me back.
Yeah, and so did you meet any I don't know how to say it. Did you have anybody say some things, when you first started wrestling and stuff? I know there's a documentary I watched about Helen, and she said, when I wasn't very good and losing all the time, I had all the encouragement in the world. And then as soon as I started winning tournaments, that's when people started saying things to me and my parents.
Yeah.
Did you have similar issues?
I would definitely say that people were either for you, like on your side cheering for you, or like totally against you. So there was no in between where they were like, yay, go girls wrestling. It was either like their team, Allie, doing good, and that was mostly my teammates and their parents, you know what I mean? But people from other sides, they didn't, once I got started getting better and beating boys, they weren't really about it. So I think that that's interesting, but it did definitely help that my dad was my coach. So I think that he probably keeps my ears away from a lot of that stuff. So I feel like he probably heard the burden of that. And once I was obviously older and started to get better, we would go to like Perler up in St. Louis, Perler Wrestling Academy. So I think that
Yep.
that me and my brother and a couple of our good better teammates, we would all travel up there. And that was definitely an eye-opening thing too. And our the comfort of our little hometown club, everyone was just kind of used to it. But being around and joining a club that had a bunch of guys that were always really good, no one really wanted to be your partner then. So that kind of threw me for a loop where it was like, oh, now I have to like prove to people that like I'm worthy to be someone's training partner. You know what I mean? So that was definitely a learning curve too. And Nick Perler helped that a lot. So you obviously are proving yourself, but at the same time, once you do that, I think it just kind of just treat me like one of the guys almost is how I liked it to be.
Yeah, Nick Perler. I've met him a couple times now. Big supporter of women's wrestling, and he holds a lot of women's events and camps and stuff. Just does a great job uh, helping out. Bringing girls up high level too. Not just beginners. Dad as coach. What was it like to have dad as coach? We've had a bunch of girls on that have had dad as coach, and always like to hear what their experience was like.
Yeah, it was awesome. I think that my dad's biggest thing was he still wants, like, no matter what happens, he still wanted to have a good relationship with me, which was really nice. You hear of some people with like horror stories of their dad being their coach, but he was very like, once you were in practice, I'm your coach. Once we're home, I'm your dad. So he played those two roles really well, and I think he definitely balanced that really well. Once I got older and more like attitude-y, I think I don't know if you know Zane Richards at all, but he's made a world team All-American couple times. So his dad and my dad would coach together and they were best friends, and Zane's like my brother. So almost he would have Zane's dad help coach me a little bit more. Like he would say to Zane's dad, "Hey, go tell Allie this." So sometimes it'd be like the last person I wanted, because I was so close to him, the last person I wanted to hear criticism from. So he kind of like worked that relationship once I got older really well too. So I don't know what the psychology behind that was, but yeah, I was definitely once I got older and cutting weight and a little snippety, um, he definitely had to make some changes, but he did really good. And then once I got older too in college and Team USA, he would still be in my corner anytime I asked. He was never like and definitely in college he couldn't, but like open stuff once I was at the OTC, you don't really have a coach because Coach Steiner coaches everybody. So I still needed someone to be in my corner and it was always him. It's just that comfort thing where he's my go-to. He knows everything about how I wrestle. He would spend a couple weeks coming out to the training center and staying out there and just the best person, best dad. So I got really blessed with him as my coach and dad.
Yeah, that's awesome. I coach with Jason Shepard. His daughter wrestled for us, and we had similar things when he couldn't handle certain things. It was, hey, go get her to do this or go tell her to do
Yep.
that. But then I think having a dad also in that corner, they know when you're spiraling out. They know when something needs to be said. They know how to handle that. Where, man, there's some girls on our team. I don't know how to handle them, and I'm thankful I have three other coaches to go. Man, can you figure this one out? Because sometimes that's a difficult thing. Girls expect to be perfectionist. And I'm generalizing, but they
Oh,
want to
yeah.
be perfectionists, so they don't always if they don't get the moves right, man, they get upset easily. And I've seen boys that are just horrible wrestlers have so much confidence in the world, and you don't
Yeah.
you're like, where does that come from? You were a really good athlete. You should have confidence in yourself. So sometimes that's hard for me as a coach to understand the psychology behind girls in wrestling.
Yeah,
And
different. You definitely have to know. I learned this. I didn't know that about myself necessarily. But once I coached at Grandview, I was like, each girl is so different. Like I could like Madison Diaz, for example, she wanted me to yell at her and treat her like how I was treated growing up.
yep.
But then if I talked to that way to Abby McIntyre, for example, she might
Yeah.
cry. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
you have to really know your athletes at a whole different level um than I ever thought. So it's really interesting to coach women. So I'm
Yeah.
sure you know.
Yeah, it is. It's super interesting, but it's so rewarding. I think it's so much better.
Yeah, we
than
care
coaching.
so much. It's not that the
Yeah.
boys do, it's like different though. I don't know how to describe it, but we
Yeah.
care a lot.
For all of us that are, if you're watching a girls wrestling podcast, you're probably around girls wrestling, so you probably understand
No.
that exact thing. Um, I looked back at your high school record. Thank God for Wikipedia, right? But 130 and 29, and that was wrestling boys. And you told me earlier that that was no girls at all. That's that's an incredible record to have. Had to be one of the first girls in Illinois to have 130 or 100 wins, I'm sure.
Think so. The girls before
Had,
me were Mary Kelly and Caitlin Chase. Those were the ones that I knew that were good before me. I don't know their record personally, but I think Mary Kelly was the first to qualify for boys state, and I think that was big too. Because I know I was the second after her, or maybe Caitlin Chase was one of those two, or maybe they both did, and then I did. So just qualifying for boys state was really big back in the day.
oh yeah, that's huge. And then, there's been a couple place winners in Iowa. Has Illinois had any girls place at the boys state and they're probably all sanctioned now. I should know this because I know a lot of Illinois girls.
They are sanctioned. I know that. I'm not sure about after me if there was any girls that actually placed at Boys State. But I know my bracket was like it was crazy. It was Tony Ramos, one of the Dardanes brothers, Ellis Coleman. I forgot who else. There was like a couple other ones where I'm like, no wonder I didn't place at that in that
That's
bracket.
crazy. That's an
Yeah,
insane
it was
bracket.
insane.
But you did do well enough in high school to get recruited by one of the best colleges at the time, King University.
Yep.
What was your experience at King? It's just a great wrestling school.
Yeah. Actually, when I got recruited there, we got dead last that year at nationals. So it was no one knew about King. The really good school at that point was Oklahoma City University. So they
Oh
were
yeah.
number one. They had won a bunch, and then I pretty much signed to the school because they had a couple other, I want to say like three or four really good recruits that also went there. And I was like, okay, I'm not going to OCU because that was my other school I was really interested in. I'm going to go to King because I know I have good training partners. So that was a big deal for me. And I really clicked with Coach Mormon. And I still to this day, JM is always in my corner. We text all the time and he's awesome. So my experience at King was amazing. We ended up my senior year winning nationals for the first time. And then they went on that long run to win nationals a bunch since then. So yeah, I can't say enough good things about that program and Coach Mormon and all my teammates. We had really good girls like Julie Slaughter, Sarah Hildebrandt, Haley Agello, Amanda Hindy. I could go on and on about all my really amazing teammates there. So it was a really good experience.
Yeah, King really became kind of the breeding
Yep.
ground for the world
Yep.
team. I mean,
Yep.
there's just a ton of people there for on the world team, and it was really fun to watch those. You had some success though at King. You were a four-time All-American, uh, two-time runner-up, and two-time national champion. Uh, the level jump from high school wrestling to college wrestling, how easy was it for you to make that jump? Because I know I struggled as a freshman in college and a lot of people do. How long did it take you to really catch on? Well, I know you did some freestyle prior, but going from folk style to freestyle and just that jump in that first year.
Yeah, it was not too bad because growing up like in high school and stuff, I played three sports. So fall was volleyball, winter was wrestling, and spring was soccer. So not until college I really just focused on wrestling. So I think that like locked in on just one sport, I think that helped a lot of just like just wrestling. And obviously, I liked freestyle way more for my style. For the life of me, I couldn't get off bottom in folk style. So that I did not miss that at all. So I think that that freestyle transition was really, really good for me. I like throws, I like upper body too. So I think that definitely helped. Definitely, I like neutral as well. So like anything on your feet was really good for me too. But I would say it wasn't bad at being around a group of girls that really all wanted and were driven towards the same goal. Having a good coach like JM, I think that transition was honestly pretty easy for me.
Very good. Um, Success after King, seven-time world team member. Do you remember making your first world team? I'm sure you do.
I think we went to Budapest was my first world team. I remember my first junior world team was after that freshman year. I made the junior world team, and that was kind of my first glimpse into anything. And there were like everyone on the world team, obviously, was like Jenna Burkett, Erin Golston, Adeline Gray, Helen, and Vicky. So everyone was like really, they knew each other. They were all training out of Northern Michigan or the Olympic Training Center. So I was kind of the newbie in the group. And I didn't have my passport or anything like that because I had never gone overseas. And they were like, well, you need to get one now. And I was like, oh, okay. So that that transition was definitely interesting. And then just being able to spend that whole summer around really, really good, experienced girl wrestlers. So I think that was a big turning point too for that summer, being spending so much time at the Olympic Training Center, being around the older girls that were on the senior world team. That was probably the biggest jump for me and really opened my eyes to what could be in the sport. So, and then my first senior world team, I want to say it was Budapest. I don't remember um, that process. There definitely was no final X back then. I know that,
Yeah.
but I don't remember exactly where that trials was, but yeah.
Where have you all got to wrestle worlds? And just where have you all wrestled
Yeah.
across the world?
It's been a lot of awesome places that definitely my second junior world team, we went to Thailand. So that was the coolest. I'll never forget that experience. We were like getting ready for junior worlds and we were like riding elephants and like everyone's parents went to that one because it was such a cool place, like a vacation for everybody. So that one was really awesome. All those European countries like Budapest, we went there a lot. Paris was really awesome. All the Asian countries too, like China and Japan. Those just totally different culture and they love wrestling there. So getting to experience that was really cool. Japan's one of my favorite places that I've ever been to. Tokyo is awesome. Their training center there is off the charts. Like it's very state of the art. Same with Russia. We went to one of their training centers up in the mountains and it was amazing. Um, just places all over that I would have never been able to experience if it wasn't for wrestling. So very, very blessed.
So since you got to wrestle in Japan and you said you were at the training center, did you ever get to work out with the Japanese teams?
Oh yeah, their practices are insane. So it's like it's basically you're doing matches for like 2 hours straight, 3 hours straight. So you warm up, you do quick technique and just like light drilling, and then you just into matches. You're like either whether it's 3 minute goes or 6 minute goes, you could be 6 minutes on, 6 minutes off, or 3 minutes on, 3 minutes off, and you do that for the whole practice, hours, and then you do crazy conditioning at the end. So it makes a lot of sense why they're really good. When we were there, they didn't spend a lot of time like showing technique or anything like that. We just took advantage of the partners that we had and did a lot of live wrestling. So you leave there tired.
Yeah, the Japanese never seem to get out of position. They're
Oh,
always in position.
amazing.
And I've watched, I was at the World Cup when it was in Iowa City,
Mhm.
and every single Japanese wrestler looks exactly the same. They're just a little thicker
Yep.
as the weights go up. That's it's crazy. It's
They
just
wrestle the
quite a
same, everything. Yeah.
yeah. And then so what's the difference in Russia than the United States? Because they're again, Japan and Russia are probably the two best right now in women's
Yeah.
wrestling, other than the United States.
I would say they don't have that finesse that the Japanese girls do. Like if you take a bad shot on a Japanese girl, they're like reattacking on your legs really quick or they're running behind you. And they catch those corners so quick because their lateral motion and their footwork is just so fast. But Russians, they're definitely down to scrap. You know how people think that we're like we wrestle hard and stuff like that, but they definitely are down to get gritty and a little dirty, especially the girls. Like they'll pull your braid to as a setup to your shot, and you're like, what the hell? So yeah, and they're already on your legs. So they'll definitely do a little, they're definitely a little more rough than the Japanese girls, that's for sure. But
Kind of a whole
scrap.
different series that the braid drag or instead
Yep.
of arm dragging or braid
Yep,
dragging.
exactly.
Oh, that's funny. Um,
Mhm.
all your experience in wrestling
Yep.
led you into coaching.
Yep.
What has been some of your experience like at Grandview? What did grad assistant there?
Yep.
2 years grad assistant, was that
Yep.
right?
Mhm.
How things go at Grandview? What did you like about that?
I liked the girls a lot. We had a great team and it's really good to get to like pour yourself into something and it was an easy transition kind of once you're done competing. I'm like, what do I do from here? You know what I mean? So it's
Hmm.
definitely a very hard thing because you've done that for so many years of your life and it's um kind of scary going into the real world from there. I did my master's while that, so that transition really helped, and being able to pour yourself into those athletes and really get to know them on a personal level, like I mentioned earlier, you really have to know who you're working with. You know what I mean? From their psychology, their mental, how they prepare, their go-to attacks, just everything. It really makes you appreciative of all the coaches that you've had and all the people that have poured into you. So getting to know those athletes, I think, was amazing. And I still talk to a lot of them today. So I miss them. It's good.
You actually said something there prior to, as going into coaching, and it's something I talk to our athletes about a lot, and I think they're doing a better job of it now, putting your entire identity into the sport of wrestling, and then when it's done, not knowing what to do. I was never near your level. I wrestled in college, but it had been my identity, for a long time. It was the only thing I was really good at. So when it was over, man, it took me a long time. I spiraled out for a while. How did you handle it? And then how are they doing? You're around the Iowa State guys, obviously high level guys. Um, how are they transitioning now? I mean, it's again, it should be what we do, not who we are, but it's a really hard thing to train yourself that way.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting. I think getting something outside of wrestling, like really focusing on like how important schooling is. So the Frost, for example, everyone knows the Frost brothers. They're mechanical engineering. That's their majors. So having just being smart and a well-rounded person, and being like social, I think that helps a lot. So like a lot of the guys here, they go to all of our events, and they're very interactive with all of our donors and stuff like that. So making those connections with people makes a big difference too. And that's kind of how I ended up at Grandview and how I ended up here, just being willing to just be open. And it's really hard. I mean, you have to pour yourself into wrestling, and you almost have to make, especially at this level, you have to make wrestling your identity. But at the same time, it's like you kind of find that balance. But the more you make wrestling your identity, those lows are really low. You know what I mean? The highs are obviously really high, but
Yeah.
say you lose in wrestling's your identity, that's really hard on you. So like after Olympic trials, not making the team, especially in 2016, I think the older I got, the better I was at balancing everything. But in 2016, when I lost in the finals to not make the Olympic team, it like really, really took a toll on me. I didn't know if I wanted to keep wrestling. I didn't know because that's all I've done. That's all I work towards. You don't really think past that event. Like that event is the most important event. And then obviously, hopefully you make the Olympic team, but I didn't. And that one really, really shook me to the core. So I knew that I never wanted to feel like that again. Obviously, being things outside. So it was a lot easier transition in 2021 when I didn't make the team. I knew like that I was with Derek, and I knew that that's who I wanted to marry, who I wanted to start a family with. So I almost had like a backup plan, even though I probably shouldn't have. But I did have that. I knew I was going to move to Ames. I knew I was going to be with him and hopefully get married and start a family. So I think that in the back of my mind lessened that really emotional and physical toll that I had, and I wasn't as hard on myself after that loss. But obviously it sucks. So I don't know if there's a good answer because, like I said, I kind of contradict myself. You have to make it your identity, but at the same time, you have to have that balance and things outside of the sport that make you happy too.
Yeah, trying to find that balance it's difficult. It really is. Like you said, not being on I was on an NAI level, and
Yeah.
still it was so important to me, and after that last match, it was like, God, what do I do now?
Yep.
You know. So
Yeah.
I'm trying to work with our kids, and even the high school girls, they may not have been out for 2 or 3 years, but they really embrace wrestling and because you're right, you have to pour yourself into the sport in order to be even average,
Yep.
so yeah, it's a tough transition. You said something else in there that I told you I watch a lot of documentaries and things like that. Helen had made a comment that everybody likes each other, and then comes around the Olympic year cycle, and
Oh,
everything changes. Does
yeah.
everything change the Olympic year cycle?
Yeah, I remember in 2016, I was one of my biggest competitors was Kelsey Campbell. So I remember she was out at a camp at the OTC. OTC was my home base. I think Sunkist at Arizona State was hers. She was out at a camp, and I remember vividly. I still talk about this to this day. I remember walking into practice, and Coach Steiner, which it's literally his job, so I shouldn't have been offended, was doing a one-on-one with her. And it's his job to coach and make everyone good. So, but I took that like so personal. I'm like, you work with me every single day. What, you know what I mean? What are you doing,
Yeah.
coach? Like, but he can't just work with me. You know what I mean? So that in itself, just like I felt so like hurt, you know what I mean? But it's
Yeah.
why, it's probably because I have more emotions and feelings than I probably should have in that time, but I can't help it. So that Olympic year is insane. So I wish going back on things, I wish I wouldn't have taken things so personal and like to heart, stuff like that, where it's like just try to be present every day, try to get better. I know it's those little things that probably every coach says to you, but it's um instead of making it such like a big like overwhelming experience and something that you've worked your whole life for, obviously you have, but like just making it just another competition. I think that if I would have done that, I mean, I would have hoped that I would have done better, but what do you do now? So it's just, yeah, that Olympic year, like she said, is crazy. Emotions are very high.
Yeah. Another coaching opportunity you have had is you've worked with Big Game, which Big Game is doing amazing things across the state, but what was your experience like at Big Game?
It was awesome. We had a bunch of, I called them littles, Kona Hughes, Leah, all these girls that I saw them at the big game banquet last week, and they're like grown-ups. I haven't seen them for like over a year. And I'm like, why are you guys so old and big now? That first year we won AAU state, as a girls club too. So it was awesome to be able to pour into those littles. And I don't know, they were all like me when I feel like I look back where they were like shy to be in a boys' room, and they were like probably they didn't really speak. So I would just joke around with them, and their personalities started to come out. So ever since then, they just nonstop talk, and they're just like, I don't know. I think that they've really grown up, and just getting to see them, and obviously they're all really, really good. So it was sad to obviously stop coaching them, but it was a long drive from Ames to North Liberty. It was probably hour 45 minutes. So I had to stop doing that. Once I started this role too, I was going over there on Sundays, um, and they duel a lot. Iowa State duels a lot on Sundays, so I had to be at those
Yeah.
duels. So I can really do both.
Yeah.
But it was a good experience.
Yeah, no, Big Game has done great things. I know Felicity's training there now too. So, they have that world team member now on their little check mark for their club,
Yep.
which is awesome. Another thing I saw that's just, I just want to mention a big honor for you. Um, IWCOA, and that's not Iowa Coaches and Officials Association. That's Illinois Wrestling Coaches and Officials Association. Um, they inducted you into the Hall of Fame. That's just a huge honor. What was that like just to be honored by, probably a lot of people there maybe when you started weren't really excited about it having you wrestle, but now it's an important part of the history of Illinois girls wrestling.
For sure. Yeah, it was huge. Other people getting inducted were like Dan Dennis and Jimmy Kennedy. So like those two names are huge. So it was just being around people have done a lot in the sport. It was really eye-opening for me. And once you're in like your process and what you've done, and you're so in the thick of your career, you don't look outside to see how much it like impacts other people. So just getting, now that I'm done and old and washed up, it's really nice to be able to like get those awards and stuff. So it was awesome.
Yeah, you definitely have been inspiration to a lot of young girls. So it's something you always have. Um, I kind of got through my wrestling end of the my outline here, but I do like to ask a bunch of questions that are kind of fun. Some are wrestling related, some are not, but we'll just get going on these. Do you guys have a pet right now?
We do. We have a cat named Sushi. So yeah, he's a little munchkin cat. So he looks like a corgi, but in cat version, like short. He's super cute.
And how'd you come up with the name Sushi?
I don't even remember. I got Sushi when I was still competing, because you can't really have, I've always been a dog person. So you can't really have a dog when you travel as much. Like I'd go
Yeah.
over, and Sushi would be fine if someone went and checked on him. I'd be gone for like 2 weeks. So it was very low maintenance animal. So that's really why I got um Sushi. But I don't know why I named him Sushi back in the day, but
If you could have any pet, and that can be domestic or, an exotic pet, what would you have?
oh gosh. That's tough. I would say probably dog, as far as domestic, but my
Are you
husband
looking
doesn't
big,
really
big,
understand.
big dog or little dog?
Probably mid-sized dog if I could. No little yappers, but also no big dog. I can't imagine a big dog being in the house with us though. So I guess it just depends what my daughter want once she grows up a little bit. So probably whatever she wants.
Gotcha. Good answer. She's got
Oh,
she's got you
I
wrapped around
know.
her finger already. Favorite wrestling shoe?
I liked my Nike Inflex a lot, or those were probably my favorite. And then the Asics Japanese, the overseas Asics shoe, like the very light
Yep.
ones, my favorite too.
Yeah, the Inflix. I just got my very first pair of Inflix. I've been asking, so this is my 49th episode of this thing, and this is one of the questions I've asked, I think, from the beginning, and overwhelmingly everybody says Inflix, and I've never had
Really?
Inflix. I always was an Asics person, and then I went to Rudis, and now I bought my first pair of Inflix. So
Yeah, they're super comfortable, easy to break into. It's nice.
yeah, I wore them about 1 hour's worth so far for an open mat. So I'm gonna wear them again tonight. Outside of, I love shoes, and it's one of those things that I've even kind of become part of my coaching identity. I always get a crazy pair of shoes to wear every year. Last year I had pink Dunks that I wore
Ooh.
to all the meets. Outside of wrestling shoes, do you have like a favorite go-to shoe?
I was sponsored by Nike, so I'm a Nike girly. So I'm wearing Nikes now. I wear a lot of tennis shoes because I always like to work out too. So other than that, I'm just pretty Nike driven.
Is Iowa State Nike? Yeah, so they got all the kinds of cool wrestling shoes and stuff. All the new ones come
Yeah,
out.
yeah.
Nice. Um, It's after weigh-ins. What's a good after weigh-ins food for you? What did you eat after weigh-ins to get ready for
I
your
was
match?
Yeah, I was oatmeal usually, just because the carbs and stuff like that, and Element this like not a liquid IV, but like similar to that, just no
Yep.
sugar, some kind of electrolyte. But those two are my probably my go-to, and then something salty like a cracker or something along those lines too. But mainly oatmeal and electrolytes are my go-tos.
Gotcha. So you've had a horrible hard cut, and
Yeah.
it's going to be one of those. It's your last time you have to worry about it. Where are you going to go out to eat, and what are you going to have?
I love Mexican food. That's probably my go-to, like chips, salsa, queso, all the things. Maybe a margarita. Um, but yeah, I'm probably going Mexican food.
Is there a good place in Ames to hit some Mexican food?
Yes, Ella's Teca. I think we're going there tonight for my birthday. So
Nice. Yeah, Ames has got some good restaurants.
we do.
I do like hitting Ames. It's not that far for me, so we go there every once in a while. Of course,
Next,
Hickory Park, you can't be in Ames
yeah,
if you don't
for
go to
sure.
Hickory Park.
Yep.
You've traveled all over the world.
Yeah.
I mean, the wrestling's done a lot for you, but if you could go anywhere for vacation, where would you go?
Ooh. Probably. I've never been there, but it's like on my bucket list. I want to go to like a Bali or Fiji or something like that along those lines. But me and my husband, we go to Mexico a lot just to go to all inclusive and it's not too far.
Yep.
So I've heard those Bali, Fiji, like insane long flights. So I don't, yeah, I don't, yeah, we go to Mexico a lot
The Mexico all inclusive is kind of the way to vacation. That's
for sure.
no worries. You can hang out in the resort the whole time. That's a
Everything
great
you
way to do
want.
it. Yes. So I'm going to go back to your folk style days a little bit here. It's second period, close match. What's your choice?
Neutral. I could
Okay.
not get off bottom to save my life. Like I said, it was really hard for me to get off bottom. I'm going neutral.
Very good. Yeah, see, there's a lot of old school coaches, especially I've noticed, well, girls have a tough time, but I think bottom's the hardest position for them all. I think it's the upper body strength. The pressure back is hard when you got pressure coming forward. So I think that's the problem a lot of girls have. So we got to work different things. But a lot of old school coaches are you take down,
Yeah.
and it doesn't work in the girls wrestling world.
No. Yeah, my
I've
dad, a lot of times I would like say down just because like everyone else said down and he'd be like, no, we're going neutral. I'm like, okay. And then one time it was like a close match and then I go down. He's like, all right, you want to go down this time? Go down. And so I went down and he's like, and after I lost and he's like, this is why we don't go down. And I'm like, okay, everyone else did it.
I had a similar experience. It was an AAU state, and my it was Jason Shepard's his daughter Tatum
Yep.
uh, chose top down by 1 point going into the third period, and I was like, Jason, what is she doing? He was like, if I tell her any different, she'll be mad if she loses. So this is on her.
On her, yep.
So at
Sounds
that
just
point in
like my
time,
dad.
yeah, it's
I
like
feel
I'm
like we
not
have
gonna,
very similar dads after these stories.
yeah, because he didn't want to hear about it. So,
Nope.
um, go to takedowns.
Low
What was
single.
your low single? Yes, I knew
Yep.
that. But you
Yep.
said you also like to go upper body and throw. So what
Yep.
was your
I
throw?
did I did judo growing up, so anything like headlocks, whatever, underhook stuff. But yeah, mainly low singles and sweeps and some doubles too. Yeah.
Nice. Do you I'm not a great low singler, but you think low single is a really good way to go for girls?
The reason I had started doing low singles is because I wrestled boys and because they're so strong and like a tie up. My dad was like, we don't want to tie up with these strong boys, especially once I got heavier in high school and
Uh-huh.
stuff. So I just watched a lot of John Smith. Got me some John Smith films back in the day on low singles. So we got me those for Christmas one year and we just started watching them. And then I just started doing low singles because it was probably wasn't smart for me to tie up with boys. So that's
Oh
really why I
yeah.
started doing low single,
Got
honestly.
it.
And then instead of fighting girls' hips, you're down at the ankle and you can pop your head up easier. So that's why I'm a fan of low singles. So
I like it. I like it. On top, what was your, and we'll go both folk style and freestyle. On top, what was your best folk style pinning combination?
probably, oh, I don't think I pinned many people. Maybe a bar. I liked bars. Bar chicken wing combo or like a bar half series kind of thing.
Hmm.
And then freestyle, I would do laces mostly. I wasn't a big gut wrencher.
Yeah, laces seems to be the way to go. Especially a low single, man, you just transition right into
Fall into
that
it.
and you're
Yep.
done.
Yep. And
Easy
then
match,
girls
30
are in.
seconds and you're off the mat.
Exactly. That's ideal. And then gut wrenches for girls, they got like funky hips. They're pretty flexible. So seen a lot of people, if you don't do the gut right, you'll get stepped over on it. So that's kind of scary too for girls.
I think
Um,
one of my very first freestyle practices, um, the coach actually said that if you're gonna gut wrench a girl, you better lock the hips in because they swivel and
yeah.
they'll step over top. And
Yep.
so I've never really been a big gut wrench on the teaching the girls that. So it's always been mostly sticking with our folk style roots, because that still happens a lot. I think that's something that the United States does well and kind of
Yep.
messes with people. You don't see
Yeah.
many cradles internationally.
Yeah. I was gonna say that like bars and stuff, like it's
Hmm.
weird. They don't know what that is. So
Yeah.
work.
Yeah, I think it tends to help us sometimes. Off the bottom, what was your go-to off the bottom?
I would try to stand up, but if it worked, if a lot of times it didn't work, I'm telling you, it wasn't pretty.
Just not get pinned.
Yeah, pretty much.
Did you have a pre-match ritual at all that you did? Was there something that you had to perform that kind of that
Hmm.
get you going?
Not necessarily. I was definitely like a pacer too, kind of probably had a little too much anxiety and nervous energy. So I would just pace and listen to music. Nothing crazy, but yeah, that's about it.
In your playlist for before matches? What was some go-to songs?
Oh gosh. Um, Definitely a lot of like EDM, like techno music where it just has a good beat and you're just bopping around. I can't think of any, but definitely some rap too. Anything like that, that had just a good beat where it was like uppity. It's pretty much what I listen to.
What's your favorite genre of music now?
Country.
Country.
Yeah.
Favorite artist? You got a favorite artist now?
Mhm. I like Zach
There's
Bryan. Yeah, I like Morgan Wallen, Luke Combs. Let's see who else. I like all country music. Yeah, Zach
yeah.
Top. Lately. Yeah,
I think right now we're in a pretty good place for music in general.
I,
I think for a while it was a little iffy, but I think there's a lot of good artists right now, a lot of different genres, a lot of good artists out right now. So it's kind of a fun time to listen to me. I've been a music person too for a long time, so I really enjoy listening to that. Of course, now that you're a mom, do you
yeah.
watch a lot of cartoons yet?
Ugh, my daughter's obsessed with Miss Rachel. Do you know Miss Rachel?
I know who it is. We try to avoid Miss Rachel.
Probably should have avoided Miss Rachel altogether. But no matter what happens, like if Stevie's like crying or whatever, Miss Rachel could come on and she's just like so happy, like starts smiling and just like locked in. So I don't know what she does to these kids, but it's like it's insane. It's really impressive. She just like talks in this high-pitched voice and sings some songs and Stevie loves it. So I haven't gotten the cartoons, but we try to not watch Miss Rachel that much, but sometimes you got to do what you got to do.
Our go-to right now is Bluey. Have you had the
Bluey.
opportunity to watch
No,
Bluey?
I've heard people love Bluey too, so
Oh,
maybe I'll
it's
check all that.
fantastic because it's even got a little adult humor in it too.
Okay.
The
All
dad's
right.
fantastic. I relate to the dad a lot. He's a pull my finger kind of guy, and
Yeah.
yeah.
Yep.
So, were you ever a Disney person?
I was not a big Disney person.
Not a big Disney person. So that's one of my questions. If that I like to ask the girls if you could wrestle any Disney character, who would you wrestle? But if you're not a Disney person, it might be
Not
hard.
a Disney person. Like I've watched like Moana and stuff like that. But I'm not like super into it.
Gotcha. Do you guys watch a lot of movies? Is that something
I
you
don't
get?
watch a lot of TV in general.
You're
To be
probably
honest,
really busy.
yeah, I was gonna say.
Is
Um,
there anything that you guys would sit down and binge though? Maybe kind of fun together to sit down and watch a show when you're eating or something. Is there something you like to binge?
we watched like Succession. Have you seen Succession? We watched that.
I have not, but I've thought about clicking on it.
Yep, that and like Game of Thrones. We watched that. Um, what else did we watch on? There's a bunch of like we'll watch all the ones that are like famous or something that are trending. We'll try to watch like The Last of Us and stuff like that that are
Uh-huh.
um, on there. What did I watch recently? Sirens. I watched that recently. That was pretty good. Um, Other than that, nothing crazy. Usually it's like pretty slow. I wish I could binge more TV, but we don't have that much time.
Well, yeah, you're both busy with careers and then
Yeah.
baby too. So yeah, get used to watching. Maybe SpongeBob will become your binge thing.
Yeah, probably.
That's what my kids. That was something we put on when the kids were bad. Throw SpongeBob on, and that's like
Oh,
crack
no.
for kids or something. So, um, if you could have any superpower, what would that be?
I'd like to fly or like teleport. Um, yeah, that'd be awesome. That's what I
I'd
would do.
get you there quicker.
Yep. I would love that.
In wrestling, somebody that has inspired you in your career.
A lot of those girls growing up, like I said, like Mary Kelly and Caitlin Chase, those girls, seeing that other girls in Illinois were wrestling, just so I wasn't like the only one. I think that helped a lot. And then when I was younger, looking up to those girls, like Randy Miller was a big influence. She was on those older girls that were on the world team with me. They did
Yeah,
everything right and just kind of wanted to do everything that they did because they were successful and they were doing the right things. So I think those girls too definitely made a big difference. Obviously, Chun and um, who else? Sarah McMahon, all those girls that were on the first Olympic team were really impactful too to see people achieve those things that you wanted to.
awesome. Coaches have a lot of little sayings that come out. Is there something that in the back of your head that you hear all the time? Like maybe even you're watching Iowa State wrestle and you hear your coach in the back of your head. Is there something that you can think of?
Yeah, Dresser says it all the time, and we actually just did our content creator just did a coach quotes thing, and Dresser
I
says that
watched that.
yeah, you could do everything right just for the chance. So, which is crazy to me. But one thing, so Dresser says that a lot, but which I'm like, that's true. And then Terry Steiner always said he was really big on like positive self-talk. He said that would you talk to yourself the way you talk to your best friend? So like, and that because obviously we're a hardest critic. I was definitely a
Yep.
perfectionist, like I said, most girls are. So I'm like, no, I wouldn't be talking to my best friend the way I'm like belittling myself just because I can't get a move right or something. So that always stuck with me. It's like talk to yourself like you would talk to your best friend. Don't talk down on yourself because you wouldn't do that to your best friend. You'd lift them up and do all that kind of stuff. So I think that one always stuck with me too.
Yeah, I feel like being around Dresser a lot might be kind of fun to hear a lot of
He's
Dresser
got,
sayings
yeah,
and stuff.
he's got a lot of good stuff.
Yeah, I'm sure I'm sure having Metcalf and your husband around is kind of fun too. Those were they teammates?
I think Metcalf was in the hockey wrestling club when Derek was there.
Okay,
They wrestled
gotcha.
a lot. There's stories of them wrestling. They were not friends back then, but now they're like best friends. But they said like Derek hated going with Metcalf and they like hated going with each other because I guess Metcalf was like the worst drilling partner. He would just go live the whole time. So then they would just start fighting each other. So, but now they're like brothers. So,
So I'm going to go completely off this actually you saying that kind of I've had this conversation with other people. You see Iowa State meet and there's a
yeah.
lot of jawing back and forth between the coaches. I'm almost positive those guys like each other. They all I mean they or maybe they don't. Maybe they don't. You know, is some of it a little bit of show though too?
I don't think it's a show, at least from what I know, it's not a show, but I just think it's a lot of
A lot of
competitive
intense.
people wanting to win. Yeah, I think
Yeah.
that's what it's down to.
Yeah, it's just it's interesting to see the college coaches the way they act, and
I
high
know.
school coaches we can't. We get thrown out for those
Yeah.
things. So I didn't know, you know, and I know that they're very intense people and really want to win. I just, you know, for the fans though, it might be a little of excitement if maybe they fought too, I
Yeah,
guess.
yeah, that would be fun. Sometimes I feel like punching an Iowa fan. No, I'm just kidding.
Again, I'm an Iowa State guy, so
Yep,
yeah, I
come in peace.
yes. You got a new role, new job. You're
Yep.
head of the NFHS Rules Committee for Wrestling.
Hmm.
That's the National High School Federation. But you know, I guess it works for college too because it always follows each other. 3-point takedown, then the high school did a year later. What rule change would you make for wrestling?
Push out point, easy.
Yep.
Yep.
I think almost that
Is it one for that?
inflicts and that step out push out point is everybody says that.
Yeah,
And then they
especially
can't
the rules now that they're kind of like at the refs kind of at discretion when it's a stalling and when it's not.
yeah.
It's a little interesting. So, and then
Yeah,
now they
the
can't like yeah, it's weird.
the
So
traditional stalling and the it's like what either stalling or it's not. Come on.
they freestyle, like the whole grounding thing. I saw that a lot
Mhm.
at Flex and World Team Trials and the Open, where you can just like pretty much drop to your knees right before you
Yeah,
get pushed out. Like that happened between Zahid and Dake a lot. And I was like, wow, if I don't know how I feel about that one because he's about to push him out and then Zahid would just drop to his knees. And so it's like that could have been a lot of points for Dake, but I guess the rules say that you just, I don't know.
yeah.
That's interesting.
At this time, I've seen that happen in a few different matches. I've always wondered that's probably the next thing that's going to happen is you can't. That's a some
Yeah.
type of some type of caution.
Yeah. That's what I was thinking.
Well, I think I've gotten through my entire list, and I
Perfect.
always leave just a little bit of time at the end for a final thought. You don't have to have a profound statement or anything, but just some things that you think about, maybe girls wrestling and women's wrestling and things that's, you know, done for you or what, anything.
Yeah, I think wrestling has obviously changed my life, and everything good that I have has probably come through the sport. I have a great relationship with my family because we traveled to so many wrestling things together and we talk about wrestling, and it's just a big part of our lives as a family. And obviously, I made so many friends, got to go to so many cool places because of wrestling. And I met my husband. Now I have a kid, and I feel like a lot of my life ties back to wrestling. So it's been a huge game changer in my life. And I just hope that girls can find ways to enjoy and fall in love with the sport and know that they have so much, there's so much upside when it comes to wrestling. So I hope that girls just fall in love with it and try it out at least, you know.
Awesome.
So
Well, thank you. I really appreciate you coming on your birthday too, on top
yeah,
of it. So happy birthday.
thank you.
Wish I was in Ames. I'd buy that margarita for you, but we'll catch that some other time. Maybe I'll get an Iowa State meet this
Yeah,
next
come to
year.
any duel you want. Let me know. I'll get you some tickets.
All right. Well, thank you very much. I'm going to hit the
Thank you.
stop